Welcome to Live Long and Podcast, a Star Trek podcast. I'm Dave Mader, bringing you everything Star Trek, and we are covering Star Trek Discovery, Episode 15, Will You Take My Hand, the finale of Season 1. I'm joined on my left by my friend Josh.
What up?
Jane.
Hello.
Hello. And Jeff.
Hi.
So, let's get into this episode because there's a lot to unpack in this one. It was a bit of a controversial finale, maybe a bit of a letdown for some. Maybe not so much for others. I found some parts of this episode really compelling and other parts of it not so much. It was not what I was expecting at all. Just to kind of talk in here about our death draft going into this, we all lose because not a single person dies in this episode.
I didn't know we could pick that. I totally would have picked that.
That in itself was a little bit surprising that we didn't lose anybody. But Josh, where are you standing on the episode just as a whole right now before we kind of get in through all the different parts of it?
I thought it was a pretty weak finale. It seemed to me like the episode from 2 weeks ago, what's past this prologue, was almost like the climax of the season, and that these last two episodes were more like a denouement to wrap up the Klingon War sort of neatly and a little too easily.
I think that's fairly accurate. Jane, what do you think?
I agree. I think it was wrapped up, but I really like that it was wrapped up. Like, I'm done with the Klingons, so let's move on.
Yeah, I think we've
happy to be done.
I think we've all had our fill of the Klingons for a while.
I disagree. I thought the show missed out. I thought the show should have stayed on more cliffhangers of what they were already feeding us. Instead, they just wanted to end it and start a new story, which I wasn't. I liked the way it was going. The show was entertaining.
You wanted to keep this war going?
Well, or the Mirror Universe stuff. Like, I wanted to see more of that. They were just like, okay, well, this is over now.
Yeah, it was like they had to kind of speed through that whole mirror storyline so they could get back to this war. I thought in some ways, like, they could have got back from that mirror storyline and that the war could have been over already. Like, they could have done something else. They could have set up their new arc if that was what it was going to be or something like that. They didn't quite have to make the decisions they made because when they get back from the mirror universe, it's led to believe that, like, the situation is very dire. Which kind of leads to the desperation of them having to recruit the mirror Georgiou in this episode, or I guess it was the previous episode. And let's start kind of going through all the different beats. So just starting off with like previously on Star Trek Discovery and all the recaps. I felt like this recap right off the bat was trying to establish two things. One, Georgiou is savage, ruthless, not a good person. They kind of hit on those beats right off the bat that she's not very bad person. And then they kind of went in, and then they also touched on that this was going to really deal with Ash and the Klingon thing and the whole Vok personality. And then we kind of go right into the episode. So it shows a whole bunch of Klingon ships approaching Earth. And then on the flip side of that, they showed Discovery is approaching Kronos, the green planet. So there's a bit of, they love this duality thing, like that there's two sides of everything. And that is very much personified in the Ash character and also in the Mirror universe in general. And then so we get to the bridge and we see again Georgiou is not really putting much effort into appearing to be her Prime Universe counterpart. She goes, call it Kronos or the enemy planet. The Klingons don't have homes. They're a bunch of jerks. They're a bunch of savages. They keep trying to remind us that she's bad. Saru is like looking around like, why is she even here? And Burnham's calling her out constantly, like, hey, where did that saying come from, Captain? And I don't really get why, because Saru knows who she is. Burnham knows who she is. I don't really understand why it matters if the rest of the crew knows.
Well, it's all about Detmer. We know she's going to be important down the road.
Are they worried about Detmer, like, throwing a fit?
That's the only explanation I can think of.
Right, so then we get this whole thing, like, where she's like, come with me. And she's like, if you try to expose me again, I'll throw you in the bridge. Like, what does it matter if she's exposed or not? And
she's not really trying to hide who she is, so what does
clearly
she care?
Like her undercover persona is very bad, unless this is just done so that we don't get confused with this was the same person we saw in the pilot in the first episode.
Could it be Starfleet's directive to covering their hide? They're doing un-Starfleet stuff, so they've told her keep it under wraps.
And we ultimately end on the line of, like, she says, "Are you with me or are you against me?" And she, she's, "I'm with you to give us ourselves a fighting chance." And maybe that's what it's all about. I just felt it was completely unnecessary, way over the top. Then we get into the credits, and then we come back. Georgiou goes to see L'Rell. and she's willing to beat her out for answers. What did you guys think of this scene?
I thought it was sort of unnecessary. They eventually go to Ash Tyler for the answers, so why didn't they just do that in the first place? It seemed like an extra little scene just to remind us that Laurel was still there, I guess.
And George is bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
George, yeah, they're really driving her up. She's bad, not a redeemable character, I guess. And I guess they need a little bit more Laurel time in here. We click over. Ash is tying knots up with. This is something he learned as a human. So this is the Ash personality. He's trying to remember that's who he is, even though that's not really who he is at all. And then she says, "Well, you're not really good to either side of the war because you're the Klingon part's gone and the human part's all weak and fragile, so you can't serve either side," which we'll come back to later. But he's willing to share Voq's memories, so it seems like he is valuable to at least one side.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, I guess you could think that the reason they went to Laurel first is because, at least I would think, maybe we can't trust what Ash says, even if he says, "Oh, I remember what Voq, remembers. You should go here on Kronos." Maybe they don't trust him, but at the same time, the way the show's been treating it, it's like they're all 100% sure that there's no Voq left, and he's 100% Ash. And I don't really like the way that went. So
I agree. They ruined so many of the things they built up that would have been cool, and then they were like, "Oh, because of the time, we gotta just wrap this up,"
Well, it felt a little bit like a heist movie. Now, what exactly was the original mission? Because we were talking about this right before we started. That what we find out later is that Georgiou is going to activate the volcanoes in an attempt to destroy the entire planet. What does Burnham and all them believe, and Saru and Tilly and all them? What do they believe that they're going to be doing?
It seems like what they believe is they get into the cave so they can't be detected, so they can scan the planet's surface to find out all their bases, and then they were going to figure out some sort of attack with other ships to take out those bases, make all the Klingons retreat back to Kronos. That seems to be what the plan was.
Military targets,
strategic
perhaps?
bombing. Yeah.
This was like a reconnaissance mission, effectively.
So, yeah, and they would have joined in to help basically have a strike against them to make them retreat. And that was what I think they thought.
Because those Klingon ships are right on Earth's doorstep. They're closing in fast. Right?
Yeah. I kind of thought of it as in a modern military campaign, you send the guys on the ground to paint the targets with lasers, and then they send their guided missiles in to take out the military targets. So they're trying to paint the targets with a laser.
Okay. Thank you for explaining that, because I got confused after the fact, because I thought that was what they were always going to do. They were always trying to blow up the planet, but apparently that wasn't the case, or at least not what Michael Burnham thought they were going to do. And so they get Ash Tyler in there. He's like, yeah, well, they have all these underground caverns for Molor. Molor has been mentioned in Star Trek canon before. He was the guy that was defeated by Kahless. Kahless and Molor, way back when, 1,000 years ago, went at it.
Yawning. Sorry.
Is that you don't find that interesting?
No.
Oh.
This is
I'm
deep,
interested.
dark
I've never heard this
Klingon
before.
history. Be very offensive to if a Klingon was sitting here.
I'm
least
not a
he's not
fan
saying
of
it in Klingon.
I'm not a fan of Klingon history.
Well, I just think it's not like they pulled this out of nowhere. This is established, and Molor is the guy that Kahless defeated, and so they, and we're gonna get into the followers of Molor in this episode. It becomes a plot device,
True.
right?
They drink their drinks twice or something.
They set them on fire. So they say, okay, well, we got to go to the planet, and we're going to go to this. The Orions have an embassy of sorts on Kronos. That's where they're going. It's kind of basically a seedy town, and the Orions are the green people. They've been a long-standing Star Trek race. They're mostly pirates and slave traders, and they're kind of like a disreputable group of people. Some of them have been in Starfleet, though. We have seen good Orions in the past as well. They bring in Tilly, and then, Georgiou is licking her lips to see Tilly, because she thinks she's like, oh, I know you're not my Tilly from the Mirror Universe, but me and Killy had destroyed Mintaka 3 and subjugated the Betazoids, which I thought was an interesting plug. Do you guys remember Mintaka 3?
I did some research into the Betazoids, and apparently they can they all read each other's minds or something like that. So.
Yes, they're a telepathic race with black eyes,
and they're like the women are kind of rule the men.
They're more of a they're more matriarchal. The women are more, have the role that men have, I guess, on Earth or traditionally on Earth. Not
Deanna Troy's a Betazoid.
Deanna Troy's a half Betazoid.
Well, she's half.
Anyway, and the Mintaka 3, which I thought was an interesting planet to pull out of in this dialogue. Mintaka 3, of course, was it was a season 3 episode of Next Gen. They're like they looked like Vulcans, but they were like a pre-warp civilization. And you remember this at all? I had to refresh Jane's memory on this.
Not really. No.
Doesn't matter. Anyway, so they're putting this heist crew together. They're going to go into the caverns of Molor, and they're going to do their surveillance, apparently. And Tilly's been recruited just for the purpose of carrying the drone. That's her job.
So she's basically like a droid would be in Star Wars. She keeps the special package.
I'm not sure she was needed on this mission or not.
She's the comic relief.
Exactly.
But when she gets to the planet, you know, and they run into that first Orion who's like, hey, Federation humans, get out of here. And she's like, pulls the gun on her right away. And she's all mean and badass about it. And I'm like, this Tilly character confuses me. Either she's kind of like a goofball, like, or she's a competent officer. I'm not sure which. Or maybe both.
Well, she had to play Killy in the Mirror universe, the Mirror Tilly. So I think she might have gotten good at being the evil side, but she can only go so far. It's not a deep.
Her
character.
acting chops are she's gaining some ground here.
I guess so.
They never showed Tilly in the Mirror universe, really.
No,
You
they
know.
just talk about what she did and things like that.
Would have been nice.
I think we will see that character. I don't think that she's dead. My guess is that they said that the Discovery's destroyed, but we don't know what that story was
Right.
yet.
I have a problem with this.
No, I agree with it because it seems like whenever Mirror Universe stuff happens, it gets like expunged from the record. So it being destroyed could just be the Federation's story.
But getting back to the episode, so they literally jump right into a cavern on Kronos, and at that moment they were beaming out. They're like, "Hey, well, the four of them, let's beam out to Klingon Las Vegas, and we're gonna have a good time." I was like, "This is pretty exciting." Like when they went to commercial at that point, I was like, "Yeah, I'm with you. Okay, let's see where this is gonna go."
I didn't like the fact that they let Mira Georgiou and Ash Tyler, who they don't trust and apparently has no rank, and they decide that those two make up half of the away team that they're sending down to a Klingon planet with a bomb. It just seems kind of weird that they're trusting them with that Starfleet.
And Michael Burnham, who is
Exactly.
a treasonous. The only person that's good is Tilly,
and a cadet.
and she's a cadet.
If you think about it, this team is kind of a mod squad because, it's got Georgiou the Terran, who's not even in the Federation or even, a Starfleet officer at all. Then we got Ash Tyler, who's a Klingon agent. We got Burnham, who's a mutineer. And we got Tilly, who's a cadet.
And the fate of Earth is in their hands. Great job, Starfleet.
And the fate is Kronos.
This is the best Starfleet has to offer?
It's pretty bad.
I might have, let's get, our best captain. Let's get Captain Pike. We know he's out there. We could have brought in him to lead this mission.
Like, Saru would have made sense on that away team.
But I don't know if a Kelpian could blend in on Kronos.
What is that? It's a blending in thing.
How did the humans blend in?
That's my problem.
I didn't get how that was going to work either, and then they just kind of glossed over it.
Well, that's what I said. Like, why hadn't they had barely any intel on Kronos, and yet you get there and they can walk around as humans. I don't get that.
The only intel they have is whatever Ash Tyler's telling them.
No, they said it's been 100 years since we've been there. We've only gotten some from traders, like
the Vulcans got some black market
maps and stuff. Like, you go there and they can just walk around.
Well, we see we see that there's a lot of Orions there naturally.
Mm-hmm.
They look almost human, other than they're green. And then we also see some Trills on this planet.
Yes, there were one Trill.
I saw 2 Trills.
Oh, okay.
One getting a tattoo and one making out with a Klingon or an Orion. I think in the opium den, as you put it, or the brothel, or whatever it is.
So we all agree that the humans should have painted themselves green, and then they would have been more
That seems
plausibly
like
blending in.
That seems like a much better plan. If they just spray painted themselves green, they would have passed as Orions visually.
I think they did do a throwaway line to the first Orion when he came up to them, and it's like, "Oh, there's humans on Kronos," something like that. Like not Federation or Starfleet.
Well,
humans,
there's obviously disreputable humans. Harry Mudd, could presumably go to Kronos, I guess, right?
I miss Harry Mudd.
Yeah, I want him back.
I'm sure he'll be back.
That was a good
back.
episode.
When he was killing, especially you go back and watch it, he's killing Lorca all those times.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to recapping that episode one day.
When we get to Klingon Las Vegas here in the Orion thing, the first thing we see is a Klingon having a pee. I believe it's a Klingon, and we see 2 streams.
2 streams.
Do Klingons have 2 dicks? We need to know.
Redundant systems. Yeah, of course they do.
That would have been like Kevin Smith's first question for sure.
They either have 2 dicks or he was just having a lot of sex, so the streams were just off.
No, this has been brought up before. They definitely have 2 dicks.
So does that mean they have 4
Wait, when
balls?
has this been brought up before?
Maybe on other podcasts I've listened to. Yes.
In Star Trek.
Wait,
You
do,
listen to other Star Trek
Yeah, they have
podcasts?
fully redundant systems.
do the women have 2 vaginas?
It's possible.
That's my
Possible.
one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you use both at the same time?
I don't know.
Well,
Is this redundant? Are you going to have 2 births? Like at the
you
same
need.
time?
Yeah, is that a system that you need like 2 hearts? 2.
Yeah, they do have
Yeah.
2 other things. Like
2 ears.
2 stomachs.
Yeah. But do you need 2 vaginas? Maybe.
Do you need 2 dicks?
Well, what if one gets cut off?
Yeah.
They're Klingons. They like to stab each other.
Yeah.
Slice
Fight
each other.
and slice it all up. Oh, did remember you pointed out to me the from Wrath of Khan, the little earwig that you saw in the street? as they were
Oh,
first
yeah.
walking
That's
through?
there was a little. Yeah, there was other than just the Klingon being confirmed
Earwig
as having
Easter
2
egg.
dicks. We saw the Khan thing from Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan, that they put in Chekhov, and
They harvested that little pup from that little thing with the.
they throw all
Antenna?
kinds of little. They're throwing
And
all
put it in
kinds of
his
little
ear?
things. I'm always like getting these little Easter eggs they like to throw in there. Like they throw in the Mintaka 3 thing. Just like I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Why would the Terran Empire want to conquer Mintaka 3? That doesn't make a lot of sense.
They conquered everyone.
I guess, but they say they destroyed the Mintakans,
Destroyed it.
and they were a pre-warp civilization, so they should have rolled over them like very easily, you would think. But at least they are in the Prime universe. Anyway, let's get back on track here. Fun fact: this is the first time urination has ever been shown in Star Trek.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me at all.
I think they made fun of that in like
They
Galaxy Quest or something like that.
You never see the bathroom traditionally in Star Trek, where no one's ever going to the bathroom.
See a
They do
tub.
sonic shower.
I've seen a tub.
We've seen the showers but it's typically Star Trek
No
doesn't.
toilets.
Yeah, usually doesn't talk about that. They've talked about lavatories at times. I remember because they said on Voyager they were running out of power, and they were like, "There's only 3 functioning lavatories, and the Bolians are causing a problem."
They don't really show it in Star Wars either, though, do they? I mean, like most space stuff, they don't really have time for the bathroom.
No,
Most movies in general that aren't like comedy don't really,
Yeah.
talk
it's just
about.
like, especially in something like Star Wars, where it's just moving. Like, well, they had time for Luke to have some green milk and
Yes.
all this kind of
Yes.
stuff. I don't know if we needed that scene.
No, we didn't.
We didn't need most of that movie.
Okay.
We're not going to get into that.
So when they
I'll
get
fight you.
when they get to the planet, they're confronted by an Orion, and she's like, "What the hell are you doing here?" And then they pull a gun on her, and they're like, "Hey, we got some Nausicaan pistols that we ripped off from Lorca's stash." They go right to the Orion Sex Club. So they're trying to find the old Shrine of Molar. That's apparently what their first part of this mission is.
So what? Sorry?
The Molar, the boring Klingon guy you didn't want to hear about
Oh, yeah.
before. Yes.
They block him out.
Yeah. Giorgio goes to have a threesome with 2 Orions. Meanwhile, Burnham and Ash Tyler go to see if they can find out from some gamblers. So they go to like some kind of
Back to the threesome with the Orions. I couldn't believe that she like had sex with them and then killed him.
I didn't get the point of it either. Like, why do we need that waste of a scene?
Again, George was bad.
But
Georgie's
Yeah.
bad.
But why
Yeah.
is it bad to have a threesome? Are they're trying to say something about sexual morality?
No.
Like, come on, we don't need to go there.
No.
I don't know. Maybe it was. I don't know why. When they come back to them later on, they're like, "Wow, that was like the best sex ever. I learned things." And then she knocks Buddy out, and she pulls the gun on the woman. And she's like, "Where's the Temple of Molar?" Why couldn't she just ask nicely? I think after having some really good sex,
That's not how Georgiou does things.
Yeah, she could have asked.
she couldn't just ask nicely.
Common knowledge.
Like pillow talk.
Would have been out of character.
Yeah.
They kept setting her up. She beats the things out of people. Like, they should just beat up Laurel, like, literally a few scenes before this. Like,
Like she doesn't know how not to be a hammer.
yeah, she's a hammer. Yeah, that's what she is.
So then we get, and then meanwhile Tilly gets a roofie from Orion Clint Howard. Fun fact too, this is Clint Howard's 5th time being on Star Trek.
Fifth.
He
Okay.
goes back to the original series. He played when he was a kid. He was in the Corbomite maneuver. Then the only one he's never been in is TNG, I believe, in Next Gen. But other than that, he's been in Deep Space Nine and Voyager and Enterprise and now this. So he's been on almost every iteration, and he's been
Not next gen though.
no, never on Next Gen.
And he's Ron Howard's brother.
He's Ron Howard's
That's all. I was like, that's Ron Howard's brother.
much less famous brother. Yes.
I was like, when I with that scene, by the way, I was like you know how like Tilly was gonna leave, and then you know they like I forget exactly what happens, but for some reason she stays. She goes, all right, fine, I'll take the hit, and then I'm just like, you're an idiot, Tilly. Like,
Why would she take a hit?
Yeah, I was like, what an idiot. like why is like again, this is the best Starfleet's got to offer. Like,
And why was she there? Like, sorry,
She was there to carry the drone, apparently.
yeah,
but why did she sit down there and decide to have?
because
take
Giorgio
drugs?
went to have sex with the Orions.
She was just,
And
she's just waiting around.
She didn't know what to do. Georgia was busy having sex, and she was just on her own because Burnham and Ash leave her there for some reason.
They leave to go gamble.
They go
That's right. She said, I don't want to have any. He was going to kick her out, so she wanted to stay.
They're having a pretty good time. All of them. One's getting high. One's having a threesome. They're playing craps out in the alleyway.
What's going on in this episode? Like, yeah, like I kind of got to a point in this episode where I was like, this isn't Star Trek anymore. What's going on?
It's also weird how all this interesting stuff was going on, and I found the episode up to that point pretty boring, despite all these cool things. Like I'd love to be having sex or gambling or doing opium if I was in their situation, but I don't want to be watching them do it the way they show it.
Literally, their planet is about to be, at least in the case of Tilly and Burnham, their home planet is about to be destroyed. Ash Tyler is like, oh, I'm really good at this craps game, thing, and so Michael Burnham's having some bad flashbacks about her parents getting killed. She goes off into a tattoo parlor. So this is where I see the second Trill. She's getting like some kind of chest tattoo. He goes, oh, those gamblers, they couldn't help me find a shrine, but they found a human speaking Klingon to them is amazing. Must be as well have been a dog in water skis. That's the line he uses. And so she tells the story of her parents' death. I thought this was like really good acting from Sonequa Martin Green on this. Like she talks about how they came in, they killed her father quickly, and then they stretched it out with her mother, and then they sat down and ate dinner and laughed.
There was a plot problem with the dinner, though. They had served dinner for the three of them. The Klingons kill the parents, and they sit down, and they don't think, maybe there's a third person here because there's dinner set for three.
Well,
No. She specifically said they made the dinner we were going to have.
Okay.
After that, I remember hearing they made it. They didn't just eat it; they made it.
Klingons
Okay, so
wanna
they
eat
know
human
how to
food.
cook human food. That's just
Yeah,
as bad.
I thought it was weird that I heard that they made it.
Like, what is
Maybe
what are they
ate
gonna
her
sit down?
parents.
Are they sitting down to a nice bowl of spaghetti? Like, what's going on here? Like,
well, maybe there was a couple boxes of craft dinner there, and they said, okay, I'm kind of tired after all that killing.
yeah.
Let's make some craft dinner.
Let's eat some cheap human food. Whoa.
And then Ash says he sees both. So, okay, he says to her, you must hate them. You must hate us in all Klingons. And she's like, I don't hate you. I look around, and I just see people living their lives. And, no one here seems to be at war with me. It seems in this, Sin City on Kronos.
They're just a bunch of crackhead gamblers.
A bunch of crackhead gambler sex fiends. Conveniently, at this point, Ash Tyler sees, see how they're drinking the fire whiskey over there? The glass on fire? That's a Molor thing.
It's a flaming Homer.
But Molor is
Mo.
being like a follower of Molor would be like being a follower of like the devil, I would presume, because Kahless is like Jesus, and Molor was the antithesis of Kahless. But anyway, so conveniently enough, they figure out where they got to figure out where the caverns are.
I think Kahless is more like Muhammad. Yeah, because like Muhammad was like this great warrior that it's like very similar story. I feel like that had to defeat like a foe and.
Was there some tyrant that Muhammad defeated, or?
I believe so. I don't know that much about Islam,
But yeah, I guess that makes sense.
And the Klingons, to me, like I was thinking about in this episode, they remind me more of like Asia than they do Russia to me. Like I feel like a lot of their buildings, their motifs, their like I don't know. I get more of an Asia vibe, like a Chinese vibe, and maybe they kind of.
Well, they're based on a few things. The Klingons have always been heavily influenced by like the samurai culture. And,
right.
Like, they were kind of really based on that, but they also have all these other things about them as well.
Well, weren't the original Klingons in like the original series sort of like stereotypically made to look Asian?
The original Klingons, some of them were, and some of them not so much.
Brown. Brown.
Yeah,
This
like
one, it was kind of like a bad caricature from what I.
yeah, it's almost brown face, but it's like they're bronzy.
Blackface. Yeah.
They're,
We did what we rewatched some of them, and
Of the
it started
original.
with bronze face, and then it really went to almost black face.
That's why now they're orcs.
Because now they're orcs.
Yeah, they really, if you look at the Klingon from the beginning to what are presenting now, very different.
oh, well, we could have a whole podcast just on what they've done to the Klingons. And I think when we go back and do, like, especially the first episode, we're really going to talk about this new Klingon appearance. I was just trying to read, like, Memory Alpha is the Star Trek wiki, and they were trying to resolve these two Klingon, or the multiple Klingons, because they explained all, like, why the Klingons changed their appearance. That was all explained in the story. And now they're like, some Klingons have talons and some don't. Isn't that weird?
They all speak the same language.
Yeah.
Imagine a whole planet speaking the same language. Like, I guess that could happen on Earth eventually, but
Esperanto.
That was what it's supposed to be, right?
Yeah.
So then we come back. Georgiou, of course, like we said, uses the gun on the Orion woman to find out where the temple is. She could have just asked, but she's a hammer. And then Clint Howard is trying to cut off she has a handcuff on the what she thinks is the drone. And then he tells her the volcanoes here are active because I guess the drugs come from the volcanoes. And then she figures that she doesn't have a drone. She has a hydro bomb. Is that what it's called?
yeah, she decides to open it.
Yeah, she opens it, and then Georgiou, just freshly having get her clothes back on, she punches her and takes it, and then they figure out that it's going to destroy the planet.
Which I thought was a little odd that someone could just come and put a bomb and destroy your whole planet.
Yeah, really
That's
easy.
very convenient.
Yeah, it's like shooting into a duct and destroying a Death Star.
Yeah.
So this was like the Rogue One episode.
Yeah, sort of, yeah.
Trying to steal the plans.
They're going back before Star Trek and...
So then they call up. She calls up Saru and she goes, "She's gonna blow up the whole damn planet." And he's like, "What?" And then we gotta get Starfleet. Like, we gotta tell Starfleet. She's like, "I think Starfleet sent her to do this." So they get Admiral Cornwall on the line. They get her on the line, and she's like, "Hey, we're losing this war. It's going bad. We got to do something about it. This is our last, that's why we put your little mod squad together." She says, "Terms of atrocity are convenient after the fact."
Now that we're fleshing this out, maybe the reason the mod squad is such a mod squad is so that the Federation can have plausible deniability and say they were rogue or something like that.
That makes
Yeah.
more sense.
I don't know if they thought it through that far, but
Well,
that
isn't that what
explains it.
Discovery kind of is? It's not, it's like you said, well, going ahead, it's not Pike's ship. It's Discovery's kind of,
It's like a Black Ops ship.
yeah,
Do you know what
to begin with.
would have been
right?
nice? A scene that would have like explained that between like the Admiral and Sarek.
But Sarek would have thrown all of them under the bus, including Burnham.
No, just to have a scene with the Admiral and Sarek. Yeah, to say yeah, like it would have made sense.
We wouldn't
you
have had
know?
this reveal when they figured it out as much.
Yeah, that's true.
I guess that's why they did it. And she says, "We do not have the luxury of principle." And she's like, "All we have is the luxury of principle." This is where I'm really eating it up because I'm like, yes, this is what the Federation is about. It's about doing the right thing, even when it's going to get you killed or you're destroyed or whatever. It's more, that your principles are more important than survival. And then Saru says, "We are Starfleet."
And then I thought they were all going to be like, "I am Starfleet. I am Starfleet." It was so
I'm
cheesy.
Negan.
Oh, Captain by Captain.
Yeah, it was so cheesy.
What, did you guys not get the flutters when that happened?
Not really. No.
No?
No.
No?
I was more upset with the way the episode was going. I was like, oh.
We all knew it was going to happen, and the way
Yeah,
they did it
yeah.
was a little on the nose for me. It wasn't
Yeah.
subtle.
Because in the earlier part of the season, when Jane and I were watching these earlier episodes, we're like, that's not Starfleet. Starfleet wouldn't do that. And then a lot of that got explained away with Lorca. But even remember the episode where, Lorca was captured by the Klingons, and they're really pushing that tardigrade to jump around so they can find Lorca?
That was not Starfleet.
That was not Starfleet to Saru. And now he's like, "We are Starfleet."
So, what I was saying, when did Starfleet become Starfleet?
Is this like
Because it's not. I don't think TOS was Starfleet.
no?
No.
I think so. I disagree with that.
I don't think Kirk was. He was, but he also wasn't the way they're saying Starfleet.
But was Enterprise Starfleet?
I think Spock was Starfleet.
I don't know if you would see Captain Picard in like a warrior circle with the
Yeah.
I don't think you would have seen that with Picard.
Picard was Starfleet.
I think-
I think Starfleet started with TNG.
I think if you go back and watch those Kirk episodes, and I think we have like a different version of what Kirk was in our heads sometimes than what he actually was when you go back and watch it. Because I just watched a few on the weekend. I'm like, oh, well, Kirk's a bit of a maverick. He kind of breaks the Prime Directive a fair bit, but generally he tries to do the right thing, and he's a good guy and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. I don't think he would have pushed that tardigrade. I don't think he would have done certain things that we see in this season.
He wouldn't have done that, no.
So then we get to Michael Burnham confronts Georgiou. She's about to activate her plan. I thought it was a bit funny that they just send Burnham.
Well, who else are they going to send?
Like a whole security team?
But they can't do that. Then it's going to be obvious that there's this huge, Starfleet team on the surface of Kronos. They have to keep their cover so that if they're not going to blow them up, they can get away without causing more problems, right?
Okay, sure. This is why Josh is here. He's to explain everything I don't get. I'm like, why are they only sending her? And she goes, don't worry, not all the Klingons are going to die. They will have the advantage of not being fired upon by Terran ships when they try to get out of here. Burnham forces her hand, holds the gun to her chest. What if Georgiou had shot her in that moment?
I would have loved it.
I'd be like, cool.
I would have loved it. If they had done that, I would have cheered. Because I would, not because I like the Michael Burnham character, but that's what the show was doing for me. They were surprising me. They were like taking it in a way where I was like not expecting what was going to happen. This episode was like Josh said, it was like labeled in front of me, and I just didn't care for that. That's not why the show was working, in my opinion. And now it's like, oh god, like please don't do like a whole season of this.
Well, you're just filling time.
This, if you want to talk about being out of character, I thought this was very out of character for Georgiou because everything she's done up until this point has been pretty bad.
It doesn't. She's got a soft spot. For
Michael Burnham?
Yeah.
But she was going to execute Michael Burnham way back when.
Yeah, but she's never really done anything good. If you look at what's her best action?
Well, she helped Michael defeat
Lorca? Well, no, Lorca helped her.
Well, and she was going to sacrifice herself so that Michael Burnham and the entire Discovery could get back to our universe. But I think she was also trying to get that glory.
That was more for her.
Yeah, it was.
In that episode, right there, there was a time that I thought she could have turned on Michael when Lorca was down and she had like something in her hand. She could have been bad. She chose to not hurt Michael at that point.
She could have killed Michael. Yeah,
but there was a point.
There was really no reason for her to, though.
Well, she goes like, whatever. I don't really care if this alternate Kronos gets blown up or not. Like, because she gives him she's like, here's your freedom, which I didn't know she needed to be given freedom, but she didn't want to be hunted down, I guess, by the Federation. And then they bring L'Rell in, and then they give her the bomb and say, this is what you'll use to negotiate to become the new power and then end the war. This is the plan, I guess, they cook up.
It makes no sense. Why did she tell them to not blow up Earth? Why don't they blow up Earth and then come back and then she can unite the Klingons and then they win? It's a win-win.
Is it a matter of honor?
Why is there no honor? They actually defeated the humans. I don't know. It just seems like a stupid plan to trust L'Rell with all of that.
So why did L'Rell not defeat the humans when she got power?
Why didn't they just keep the bomb themselves and go to the Klingons? Hey, we have a bomb. If you don't leave us alone, we'll blow up your planet.
Well, I guess she had a change of heart, and because Ash Tyler's along for the ride.
It wasn't Starfleet.
Ash Tyler's kind of saying, kind of giving her the advice to. It's a bit of a stretch, though. I think, with everything we know about L'Rell, that she even earlier in this episode, she's like, "We will destroy you" and everything else.
So I think they're saying that her goal was to use the humans to unite the Klingons, but not to actually.
Well, Michael Burnham says to her right in the cave, she goes, "This is the place where the Federation crushed the Klingons, or we're just about to, but don't make us because we have another plan." And so she goes for it, I guess.
Yeah, it just seems really, I don't like it.
And so Georgiou flakes off at this point. She's like, "I'm going to go off," and she says, "Be good, Philippa." The thing I think we forget about Philippa Georgiou is she was the Emperor of the Terran Empire, meaning she would have read everything that was on the logs of the Defiant, right? So she presumably could know all kinds of future events in this universe up until the disappearance of the Defiant.
Wait, why would it be future?
Because the Defiant went back in time.
From when?
From 2267, which is many years after this occurs.
Oh, okay.
Right, and ends up in the mirror universe with Jonathan Archer, right? With the mirror Jonathan Archer.
But we don't know how time travel works in this specific instance. like, wouldn't the whole future be different now that Georgiou's in this
No,
universe?
I don't think so.
It would all be the same.
No, it's a predestination paradox.
So then she would know that Kronos wasn't blown up. So then she would know that her plan to blow it up never would have worked.
In theory, yes. It depending on how well she read the records. Like, she had this entire Federation library at her disposal up until going 12 years beyond this time that we're being shown in this episode.
No, exactly. So if it's a predetermination paradox, is that if that's what you said, whatever term?
Predestination paradox.
Yeah, I get what that is. I didn't know that was the term, but she should know whether or not the main Klingon planet has been blown up or not.
Maybe not.
But maybe she doesn't know that it's a predestination paradox, right? Like maybe she thinks that, like you said, like
she could change the future.
Yeah.
But then her knowledge of the future won't be valuable anymore because she's changed the whole future that she has knowledge of. So she shouldn't want to blow it up if it hasn't.
Or maybe that's why she gives in at the end.
Well, there we go. And I don't think the writers are smart enough to do that.
I think if they listen to this podcast, they will be.
Right.
Well, they're not smart enough to listen to this podcast.
No.
So then we go to the final act. Vok / Ash has this farewell with Michael Burnham.
Okay, my least favorite part of the episode by far. I don't know about you guys, but by far that was.
It
my
wasn't
least
that
favorite.
long.
It was so long, and it was so overdrawn, and it's like these people should hate each other. He snapped the doctor's neck, like oh no, it wasn't really it. Like. There's so many things about that goodbye. They shouldn't even like each other. Like they shouldn't even like. The whole relationship bothered me in this episode. I don't know about you guys, but
I see you.
I think it's been.
Annoying.
It's been very drawn out. This whole relationship. They've had one too many scenes. These two. I think I obviously understand why they have to have a goodbye moment. He says, "I'm going with Laurel."
Why is he doing that though?
I guess because he knows he doesn't. I don't know. Like it's not clear why
seems like he knows he's really a Klingon, and he doesn't really want to be around the Federation anymore.
She loves him. She wants to protect him. So she.
But didn't she rape him?
No.
Laurel?
Well, it depends
That
on
was
who.
a flashback.
She may have raped Ash Tyler, but not Vok.
No,
No,
Vok and Laurel were in love.
We're in league together.
No,
yeah.
I know, but he had these like painful memories
Yeah,
of
he's
their time together.
PTSD and like he was a sexual abuse victim. You're right. I hadn't thought about that, but why would he go with
Maybe
Laurel?
he has Stockholm syndrome, or as they call it in Die Hard,
His character
Helsinki syndrome.
has so many freaking problems with it. It's not even like they could have just killed him and then fine. That would have been great.
They should have killed him and kept Lorca. Yeah, that would
Could
be
he have
awesome.
like sacrificed himself to like end the war or something?
When they were like when she transported him into space, like when she was going to transport him into space, that's where they should have left his character. Transport him into space, done. Like that should have been the end of his character because everything after that was just like, who cares? Like I don't.
right?
Yeah, it's stupid.
Yeah, I have to, is he back next season? Is this Ash Tyler character back?
Yeah, I think we're gonna see both of them.
Yeah, both Laurel and Ash Tyler.
Yep.
As long as there's not a whole Klingon episode, I'll be fine with that.
Yeah, I don't think we're done with him.
He does give her the knot at the end, the knot he was tying earlier in the episode. So he's like, "I'll be back for this to tie the knot with you."
That subtle symbolism of this literal knot is what ties me to my human side.
It's not too subtle.
I think it was more like I'm giving you my human side and I'm going to be Klingon. I think that's more what it meant.
I think when he did the gambling thing and he kind of seemed into it, I think he might have thought, "Oh, I think my Klingon half is more fun for me."
Laurel, we click over to Laurel. She's talking, I guess, to the Klingon Parliament or some kind of public gathering place that they have,
Wouldn't it be the
Council.
same place in Undiscovered Country, like kind of thing?
Yeah.
Like,
where they do the trial.
yeah,
It could be.
It felt like the same thing.
Yeah. And she says, Takuma brought us together, but in this fight, we lost our way. I'm going to be the new leader. They all laugh. And she's like, but I got the bomb. I'll blow up our planet if you don't follow me.
Imagine a human did that. Like, you wouldn't get to be the leader.
Dr. Evil did that in Austin Powers, and it didn't work out for him. So.
It seems a bit like, really? Like,
She's pulling a Dr. Evil, and it's like, only reason, like, way they could go, oh, the Klingons respect the strength, or some bullshit they'll come up with. You know, like.
I can't imagine, like, I'll blow up the planet if you don't make me, like, the Chancellor, effectively, right?
Yeah.
And does that mean she has to keep the bomb armed and in place forever, or else her power's over? Like, can't they just send someone down to the cave and be like, "Oh, here's the bomb; it's disarmed"?
I don't know. I'd be interested to see if they come back to that or how long she stays in charge of things, But then they say, okay, well, we'll turn the ships around. The war is over. Woo! woo! Not really a victory, more of like we kind of got out of this somehow. And then we flip over to Earth and to Paris, which is, and this whole scene apparently takes place at Vaughan City Hall. Nice little plug to Canada.
Vaughan City. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
Vaughan, Ontario.
Vaughan, Ontario.
We got a scene with Amanda Grayson, Spock's mother, talking. They have this nice little heart-to-heart with Michael Burnham. And we said to each other, they look like the same age, don't they? Like
Absolutely.
Spock's mother and Michael
Amanda
Burnham.
and-
Turns
I
out
can see that.
the actresses are 10 years apart. But
Yeah.
She's
it
adopted,
showed,
though.
it showed. Yes.
she is.
She
She
could have been
is.
adopted at 10 by a 20-year-old bride.
I guess. Like, so, yeah, Mia Kirshner's 43 and Sonequa is 33. Anyway, so they talk about growing up, don't lose your humanity. She gets it now. Yay. I thought this was even less interesting than the Ash Tyler
It's
scene.
boring.
Wasn't the whole season about Michael Burnham having too much humanity and not using logic and using too much emotion? You know what I mean? Like,
I guess, yeah. Bring over her Vulcan dad, foster dad, Sarek. He's like, I was involved in this plan. It was pretty stupid. Huh? Yeah.
and he didn't get in trouble for
He
it
didn't get
at
in
all.
trouble. Cornwall doesn't get in trouble. Nobody gets in trouble. I think this is why she gets the pardon. I think because she
She knows too much.
she knows too much, and they can't kill her. I guess
Yeah.
so. They
Yeah, it's kind of like Sarek going like, "You did good, kid. You blackmailed me, and good job."
I basically said to the president, like, if you don't give her the pardon, she's it's kind of
She's going to rat out the whole leadership for this plan.
Yeah.
So we have to give it to her.
So they give her back. Like, not only is she not going to have to go back to prison, but she's back in Starfleet now.
As a commander.
She's back. She
Commander.
got her commission back and everything. She doesn't even have to start at the bottom.
No, so is she first officer now?
Well,
Or
She's a
what's coming
commander.
up?
She's a
like,
Riker.
I like to pay attention to these little
Commander.
details. She starts with this whole long speech about what Starfleet is. And she's wearing the gold again,
Okay.
right? And then he does say commander, so her rank is
Somebody
back. But that was what
commander.
her rank was when she got kicked out of Starfleet. And then when she gets over on the Discovery, she's wearing silver again. So she's on science division now.
Why?
Because she's the science officer.
She's still subordinate to Saru, right?
Yeah.
He's the acting captain on their
Yeah,
journey
he's
back.
first officer / acting captain.
So she's second
Is
officer?
Saru a commander as well?
Yes.
So when they were on the Shenzhou,
He was a lieutenant commander back then.
oh, okay.
So he was subordinate to her back then.
Now they're the same.
No, well, he's still above her because they're same
Captain.
rank, but he's first officer, so he's like a higher position.
So there's a chance that Michael Burnham's the captain next season, and Saru is the first officer.
I thought they are picking the captain up at Vulcan. Is that
Well, they said,
what
yeah,
you
we
guys-
got to hop over to Vulcan and pick up our new captain. So I was like, well, what is this show? Is this show gonna like basically be like a new captain every season? Could that be what they're going for?
That'd be kind of cool. It'd be like the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher in Harry Potter.
Yeah,
It's different
right.
Every year.
It just it's a cursed position.
It's
and
always someone evil or something
nobody
like
can
that.
hold this job for more than a year.
So wait, there's going to be two commanders?
Well, you can have people with the same rank.
Yeah, but that's pretty high.
Like,
Commander?
well, if you want to get into that kind of stuff, like by the time that the undiscovered country is happening, they almost all have the same ranks.
And a lot of them are admirals and shit. Right? Like,
By the time of undiscovered country, Kirk and Spock are both captains, and everyone else on the senior staff is a commander. Oh no, sorry. Both Kirk, Spock, and Scotty are all captains. They all have the same rank.
wait, aren't they admirals by that point?
No, because he gets demoted in
But
Star
he
Trek.
was an admiral.
He was an admiral
in like Final Frontier, or
from Star Trek 1 to Star Trek 4. Yeah,
who was?
Kirk.
He's an admiral from those in 2 and 3 and 4.
1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he gets stripped of rank for
Yeah.
disobeying orders, so he's only a captain after that point.
Right. Which is what he wanted.
But you can still be a commander of a ship if you're a captain, or an admiral. Sorry, like you don't have to just be a captain.
So why did they make such a big deal about that in the Star Trek movies, where
It's inconsistent. Like
Yeah.
it's very inconsistent. Like admirals are not just desk job guys back at the home base.
seems like that's what the movies
No,
were.
they're usually on a flagship that leads a bunch of other ships.
Exactly.
But
like
why would there be 3 captains on the same ship, though? The definition of a captain is someone who's the one guy in charge of a ship.
Well, there's the captain can mean two things, right? You have the captain of the ship, but then there's the rank captain.
No, I get that, but I'm going by like the old naval definition. Like you get up to captain, they're like, okay, now you go to that ship and you take that one over because that captain's dead. You know what I mean? Why would
Yeah.
you leave them all on one ship? It seems.
Well, it's just what their ranks were at that point. But the captain of the ship was Kirk. Anyway, so yeah, we're gonna get a new captain of this ship, and she's so we get this long speech from Michael Burnham. We defeat.
Horrible.
You didn't like it?
I hated it.
You hate it? Why'd you hate it?
I thought it was like shoving it down our throat. I get that it was trying to wrap up the whole season. We are Starfleet. Like
it's a little.
Even for Star Trek fans,
it was too much for me.
Yeah,
too much.
I felt like it was trying to like make up for the fact that it was so not in Star Trek feeling.
Yes.
Early on.
I thought coming into this podcast that you were gonna love this episode because it was so, to me, fan servicey to what Star Trek usually is. And what I liked about this show, up until the Lorca episode where they killed him, was that the show was snapping necks and not caring. And, like they killed a dog. They would never do that in any other, like, Star Trek anything. Where they would like just snap a neck all out of the friggin' blue, and they stopped doing that after the Lorca Mirror Universe,
I
stuff.
like that. So that is what I like about Star Trek and Starfleet is that they have morals and principles. I just found this was like too obvious.
I think it could have something to do with this. This episode was filmed in October, apparently. That would have been after the premiere, right?
Yep. Yeah, September was the premiere.
Yeah. Right. So they filmed this episode. They were a few episodes in by then. Of people seeing it, and there was the fan reaction, and I think that this was maybe put into the script or into this episode.
Wouldn't surprise me. Yeah.
That they said, "Oh, the fans are rioting. We can't do anything but the Klingons. We've already kind of committed on that, or the Klingons' appearance. But all like this anti-Federation Starfleet talk we're getting, we need to really drive this home for the end of the season. It could be that's why they did it.
Possible. Yeah.
I think that if they did that was a huge mistake. If they were gonna finish the season with Mirror Universe stuff, which is what I wish they had done. Then that would have been, and they switched like halfway through their writing process to be like, all right, we got to wrap up the Klingon stuff. Then that was a huge mistake in my opinion. What they should have done was stick with the Mirror Universe right to the end of the season, and then we would have been like, whoa, what's next? So that was amazing, That's what I think.
I would have been satisfied with 2 episodes ago. That's it.
Yeah, we felt like that episode was a finale in a lot of ways, and then this, not really. Like more of like a prologue. Or which one's the one after? Is it
Epilogue or denouement? Yeah. Well, do you remember when we were talking when they were in the Mirror Universe, how like, okay, L'Rell's doing nothing, Ash Tyler's doing nothing, they're just sitting there while they're in the Mirror Universe, and now they get back, and it's the same thing with Saru and with Stamets, they're just sitting there doing nothing. What if they had somehow been able to switch it? You know what I mean? Like, I don't think it's good planning when you have characters just sitting doing nothing for episodes at a time. They should have been able to integrate them better.
That's been going on Star Trek forever because like they're never able to get all the characters well into one episode. So what Star Trek did throughout all like the 80s and 90s was they would say like, okay, this is like a this guy episode. This is a captain episode.
They always had 2 stories going on in the same episode.
No,
That's what Star Trek.
Often.
Well, Next Gen for sure.
Next Gen, yeah, would
Always
often
had 2
would
storylines
have like an
going
A
on.
and a B storyline and stuff like that. And you wouldn't see characters, or they might like Picard might have one line in the episode, even though he's the captain, right?
I'm fine with that though for an episode, but I just mean the way they did like the Ash Tyler reveal, and then right after it they did the Lorca reveal, and then they just have Ash Tyler in a coma. And, like it just I didn't like it. They could have spaced out the twists longer and instead of having them all
Happening at once,
and then people sitting there for episodes.
I think that would have like the way they did it with the reveals or whatever would have been fine. But I wish they had kind of followed like a Game of Thrones type setup where like each episode they can end with something really awesome, but they ran out of things that were awesome. But the thing is, they shouldn't have gone back to the Prime Universe. They could have really kept driving the agenda, driving the plot forward, like coming up with all sorts of cool stuff through the Mirror Universe. Now it's like, well, it's gonna get boring. That's my worry and feeling of what's gonna happen with the show. And I thought this at the beginning of this season. I thought, this is gonna be another stupid Star Trek show. Like if they don't do it but then they started doing it right, and I was like, I'm excited. But now I'm just like, please don't do the fan servicey stuff. Like, and that's what they're doing. And
I like the fan service stuff.
Yeah, I think Jeff and I like 2 different Star Treks. We're 2 different kinds of fans. Like you like DS9, I like Next Gen Voyager. I'm like, bring back the episodic, please. And where you're seeing that they wrapped up too quickly.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yes, wrap it up every episode. So
Yeah, no, that's fair. Like
Yeah.
I there's a time and place for both.
Yep.
And it's not that I dislike TNG or any of those episodic stuff, but for me, like the meat of a good like arc was like what DS9 did, over multiple seasons. Yeah, they still did episodic stuff and they still followed characters one at a time and stuff, but they had a general arc that you could build off.
Was consistent for the whole. Yeah, this seems really choppy.
Just getting back to the plot of this. So we get the speech that Jane already said she didn't like. I thought it was a little too long, a little too much, but they just did kind of win a war, I guess. She says, we will defeat fear with telling it no. We won't break the rules. We won't allow desperation to get to us. And
we will never forget what happened here.
Right. Tilly gets promoted. She's now an ensign. She's not a cadet anymore. She's getting into the command training program. Culber gets his medal posthumously. Saru is the first Kelpian, the only Kelpian I've ever seen, so I think it makes sense he'd be the first one. Stamets gets promoted to lieutenant commander. Michael Burnham's back in Starfleet, and then they get back to the ship. They said Starfleet's committed to a non-human interface for the spore drive, so we're just going to have to travel the old-fashioned way from now on.
Does that mean they could use a different race?
Well, presumably. They have to find...
Non-human.
Kelpian?
I think... I take it that it's gone. It's gone.
It's too powerful of a technology just to go... we can't find a non-human interface, so
I was thinking, how whatever that episode in TNG was, where they were ripping the fabric of space, so they had to reduce their warp level. They could only go to warp 6.
Yeah, they had the speed limit.
Yeah,
and
so it's
everything.
kind of like this. Starfleet's going to go back. It's too dangerous to use a spore drive, and that's it.
So like everything with the spore drive was like, is that on record? Like, is that like in Starfleet like databases?
I don't think it is.
Well, it was a top secret ship, but maybe not.
There's never a captain's log or like from Lorca or anything. I don't know. It's very convenient.
Like it seems like Starfleet is run by a bunch of idiots. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like most companies, actually.
Yeah.
Peter
Yeah.
Principle.
Yeah.
So Sarek's along for the ride. He wants to see home. He always loves seeing home or whatever he says. This Sarek is not my Sarek, okay? I got to tell you, this guy is nothing like Mark Leonard's version. He's a much more human-like Sarek compared to the Sarek that was presented in all the other stuff. Agree? Thoughts?
Yeah. Well, like every time they do Vulcans, they always make them more human.
Like every iteration.
Yeah.
Right?
And every Klingon, they always make more like barbaric.
They keep amping up those qualities.
Yeah, and stop it, please.
Just be consistent to what these characters are. Like, especially if you're going to bring in a character like Sarek. Like, they could have made him another Vulcan, right?
Yeah.
Like, and maybe he's a bit different. That would be okay. But if you're going to bring in a character like Sarek, I want him to be true to who that character was.
But like, think about the Star Trek movies, right? Like, they would never have Leonard Nimoy like punching a guy on a starship and going no, like that would never happen in like Leonard Nimoy's version,
like
of
Into the
Spock.
Darkness style.
Yeah, like that. Like Leonard Nimoy would never be that version of Spock.
No,
but he is it's the same Spock, But they amp up the human version of the Vulcan character for some reason. I have no idea why.
I think the actors or the writers don't know what to do with it. Is what I think.
Yeah,
but
Gene Roddenberry to kind of like, keep it on track.
Anyway, we end this episode with a Priority 1 distress call. Mm-hmm. And as it's coming in, we see the registry number slowly popping in. 1701. Oh my God, it's the Enterprise. Woo!
Fan servicey. If there ever was a moment in TV this year, that was definitely it. Oh my God.
It's a hail from Captain Pike. I paused it and I was like, what have they done? What are they going to do? This left me in suspense. This was a cliffhanger of sorts. I don't know if it was for you guys.
I just went, really? Okay. And I turned it off. That's basically what it was for me.
I don't know how much of the original series you've seen. Probably like
4 or 5 episodes.
Do you know anything about the Enterprise at this time?
I know that it was like a bunch of colorful wooden doors that opened up like on little they slid open. Well,
more in the story. I like at this time Kirk's not not on the ship. Spock's not even the first officer. So this is 2256, and then you remember the episode The Cage?
Yeah.
The Cage which is the first time we ever saw Captain Pike. He was really the only time the original Captain Pike was shown in TV, other than
The pilot.
Was the pilot? Well, it's kind of weird, yeah.
and that other one where they doing all the flashbacks, right?
Yeah.
But that's 2254. So that was 2 years before this.
Yeah.
Right?
And what year is like the first year of Kirk being captain?
It's 10 years later.
What year?
2266.
So this is 2256.
Yeah.
That the show's taking place, Discovery.
Yeah.
So Kirk is what, like 15?
No, he's like a lieutenant at this point. He's like.
So wait, how old is he?
Well, no. What, didn't Pike bring him in?
Kirk at this
And
point.
he fast tracked?
No. Kirk.
Oh, no. We're alternate.
You're thinking of the alternate timeline. At this point, Kirk is. I think he's in his 20s.
In his 20s. Okay.
Yeah, he's a younger officer at this point. He's on the Farragut. We haven't seen the Farragut.
Is Spock on the Enterprise
Yes.
at this point?
We think so. Yes.
Yes, he is on the ship, and like we see Michael Burnham and Sarek give a look to each other, like, "Oh,
Yep.
it's the Enterprise. We're gonna see Spock
see
family
Spock."
reunion. How exciting!" Like that bugged me because Sarek would not have that reaction. Like Sarek doesn't care. Like Sarek's a Vulcan. Like Sarek doesn't get emotional about seeing his son or
If
not.
he is emotional, he ain't gonna show it.
He's not going to show it even to Michael Burnham. This left me with all kinds. I was really studying the outside of the ship because they've changed the look of the Klingons. They've changed the uniforms. They've changed all kinds of things. And they've even changed the Enterprise. It's not exactly, but it's pretty close.
It's close.
In terms of the exterior of it.
Still Constitution class.
Yeah, like
Visual reboot.
like the main thing I noticed was the pylons on the nacelles. It's a visual reboot, a retcon of sorts. The pylons on the nacelles are a little different. The angle's different. There's some gaps in the rear. The exterior hull is a bit more bluey gray.
I think that was just like the gas around it.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
And then we get them nose to nose, and then we go to credits.
And they didn't look like they were distressed at all.
They didn't look like they were in distress. So they seemed like they just kind of. Hey,
Moved right in
They
there.
never asked, like, what was the distress? They just went, oh, it's Enterprise.
Priority 1 distress.
And when I see the two ships right next to each other, my first question was like, they look about the same size, right? Or Discovery even looks bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
And-
yeah.
And
Yeah.
when they said earlier in the season that Discovery is a new ship, and it's got about 100 people on board or so,
Maybe it's undermanned.
maybe. But like,
Seems like it with the number of people on this ship in the
Yeah,
show. There's like
cadet.
no one on there.
A cadet is like, the first engineer officer, it feels like. And
yeah.
Yeah.
but the Enterprise is supposed to have 400 people on it.
So the Discovery was this Black Ops Spore Drive secret science ship, and they don't know they're not going to use it for that forever. So they built it for future use to hold more people. But right now it's undermanned, and it's only who needs to be on there.
It can hold more people. You're saying?
That's what I'm thinking, because eventually it won't just be a science ship.
Okay.
That's my made-up excuse for them.
This is also very geeky, but their registry numbers. Well, Jeff was asking, what does NCC stand for? No one knows. But Enterprise is NCC 1701. Discovery is NCC 1031 because apparently the creator has a big hard-on for Halloween. So that's why it's 1031. But if the Discovery's built after the Enterprise, why would its number be numerically before it?
Maybe it's like the 1 indicates something, the 7 indicates something. So
Well,
it's
that when Jane
numerically
said like maybe
up
the
and down.
numbers aren't like a numerical sequence. Maybe like the 1 means it was built in the Alpha Quadrant.
Yep.
The 7 means it was built at this base or something. I don't know.
7th planet
It's like-
of whatever.
It's
Yeah.
like Boeing. It's not like the 727 was built before the 737, 47. They just mean different things.
I guess so. Like because they've never done a good job of explaining it before. I'm still like left with questions.
And maybe
after,
because this is Black Ops or whatever. It's not in numerical order.
And they asked the creators, why did you end this show with like showing the Enterprise? And again, like I think this is fan service because everyone was going, why does Spock never mentioned his adopted half or sister or whatever? And they're like, now you're going to find out. So I think that's why they're doing this, is that they have to have some scenes here to figure out why that is.
Okay. It'll all be made up bullshit at the end of the day. I mean,
Hopefully they hire a bunch of new writers for next season, and
Yeah.
then they can figure it out.
like the only way like it would mean like make sense to me is that if they killed Michael Burnham at some point, and it's like just something Spock never talks about,
He can't bear to talk about it
Yeah, something like
in some
that.
Vulcan way or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me.
So they can't talk about the Klingon War. They can't talk about Michael Burnham. They can't talk about the
Spore.
Spore Drive. What else can they talk about?
This whole show is like a big conundrum.
Yeah.
Holograms.
Like it was nothing to see here, nothing to talk about. It doesn't really matter. It didn't have any kind of effect. What are your questions going into next season? Where do you feel like where is this going now?
I have two. Who's the new captain? And I have a prediction. And what is the new role of the Discovery now that it's not this ship for
The war
researching the Spore Drive, going into Black Alert and trying to figure out how to use the Spore Drive? What's its new mission going to be within Starfleet?
I don't know. Like I guess just exploration in general. That's kind of what they allude to in this episode, that they're just gonna get back on the road. And you don't like exploration?
No, I liked the way the show was going, and now if they go episodic, I'm just gonna fucking blow.
Like
my
where
brains
would
out
you
with
want
the
to see
show.
it go?
I wanted them to continue what they were doing.
With what?
With the mirror universe stuff. I wish
They can't just make this show about the mirror universe.
Oh, it would have been amazing. I would have loved that.
We don't know that the Mirror Discovery isn't around and that's going to be a whole thing next
Yeah, it
season.
can pop up.
Like they're gonna bring Georgiou back for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That goes with my prediction for the new captain, Prime Lorca.
But he's dead. They say like they don't know where he is or he's dead, right?
He's the new captain.
Doesn't mean he's dead. But he wouldn't be on
There you
Vulcan.
go.
They wouldn't have been, he's definitely dead if he was actually dead. They wouldn't have made a point of saying that so much.
Well, the Cornwall says like last episode, we don't like. I guess he died. I guess Mike
They
Gabriel's
could've
been
found
dead.
him. They could have found him.
Like
Do you think it's going to be someone we know as the captain?
No, I think it's somebody new. Like
Not necessarily a Vulcan, because they're just picking up at Vulcan.
I think that's a red herring that they're picking them up at Vulcan. They want us to think it's a Vulcan.
but it's not a
It's
Vulcan.
not a Vulcan.
No.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a Vulcan just because you're picking them up at Vulcan. Yeah, you're
gonna
right.
be
So
an
who else do we know
Andorian.
from these times?
Oh.
10 years before Kirk.
There's Majel Barrett's character, number one.
She was number one. Maybe she's moved on. This
Like
is
we said,
after the cage.
This
Maybe
is 2 years
she's-
later. She might
Yeah.
not be there anymore.
So she's now ready to be a captain.
It's possible. I don't think it would be Kirk
No.
because I don't think he's a captain by this.
God, if they did that, if they made Kirk the captain.
Well, it was presumably they're gonna have to go. When they end this episode with meeting the Enterprise, and we're gonna have to meet Spock. Are we gonna have someone new cast as Spock?
That's
yeah,
so
that's what
bad.
me
So
and
bad.
Josh were talking about this. Is Bruce Greenwood going to play Pike? is Zachary Quinto coming back as Spock?
I don't think so.
Probably not.
New actors,
They would
right?
cost way too much money.
Well, if they can recast Sarek, they can recast anybody, right? So
Yeah, and I think once they started using people from the new movies, actors, they would have to start doing it for every single character, and that'd be too
yeah, and the
expensive.
guy playing Sarek's not the same guy who played Sarek in the movies.
Exactly.
So that doesn't have to be the case.
We're really going to have a new Spock. Another one.
This will be the third Spock, right?
Counting kids, but.
All right, guys. Well, that's been Star Trek Discovery, episode 15. What was it called?
Why won't you
Take
take
my
my hand?
hand.
That's been Star Trek Discovery, episode 15. Will You Take My Hand? The finale to season 1. We're going to be going back and covering the first 12 episodes of Star Trek Discovery over the course of the next few months. So we have all those in the can, and then we can be ready for season 2. We're also going to be covering other Star Trek content from the past and doing some rewatch podcasts, including some movies, TV shows, and more. So stay tuned for that. For all of us here at Live Long and Podcast, thank you for joining us on this journey to the stars. I'm Dave Mader.
I'm Josh.
I'm Jane.
Jeff.
Thanks, and live long and podcast. Good night.